You know, when you think of a superpower today, your mind probably jumps to countries with huge armies and massive economies, right? But what if I told you that one of the most powerful players in European history wasn't a country at all, but a religious institution? Yeah, so let's get into the incredible story of how the medieval church went from a persecuted faith to a full-blown continental superpower. I mean, it's a huge question, right? How does a religion become a superpower? How does an organization based on faith end up commanding emperors, owning huge chunks of land, and basically running the daily lives of millions of people? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack right now.
Okay, so first things first, a quick clarification. When I say the church with a capital C, I'm not talking about the little building down the street. We're talking about the organization, the whole institution, the entire structure and all the authority that came with it. And right at the top of that entire organization, you've got this guy, the Pope. He's the head of the Roman Catholic Church, the Bishop of Rome, and believe me, we're going to see his power just explode as we go through this story. And this right here, this was the church's ultimate weapon, its nuclear option, excommunication. Now, this wasn't just some spiritual slap on the wrist. In a world where your faith was literally everything, being kicked out meant you were doomed, not just in the next life, but in this one too. You became a total outcast. So remember that word, excommunication. It's going to be a huge deal later on. So, where did this all start? Well, the church's story definitely doesn't begin in a grand palace. No way. It starts much smaller, with a group of people who are often hunted down inside the massive Roman Empire.
I mean, for about 300 years, being a Christian in the Roman Empire was seriously dangerous. You had emperors like Nero and Diocletian leading these absolutely brutal persecutions. But then, 313 CE, everything changes. One guy, Emperor Constantine, makes a declaration. Christianity is now okay. And bam, the floodgates just burst open. The results were staggering. In just a couple of decades, Christians go from this hunted minority to more than half the entire population of the empire. Talk about a comeback story. All right, let's jump forward a bit. The Roman Empire collapses, right? The old order is just gone. And what's left is this chaotic mess of new, pretty unstable kingdoms all over Europe. But chaos, it can also be an opportunity. Okay, so put yourself in their shoes. Imagine you're some warlord who just became a king. You've got the swords, sure, but you don't have legitimacy. You need something to prove to everyone you're the real ruler. And on the other side, you've got the church. They have tons of followers, but they don't have land or an army to protect them. See where this is going? Both of them desperately needed a powerful ally. And here's the deal they cooked up. It was mutually beneficial, to say the least. For kings, like the legendary Charlemagne, getting the church's blessing was everything. It basically told the world, hey, God himself wants me to be king. I mean, how do you argue with that? It was the ultimate tool for keeping people in line. And what did the church get? Oh, just protection, millions of new followers, and their very own territory right in the middle of Italy, the Papal States. It was the perfect, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours deal, and it made both of them more powerful than ever. But these kinds of partnerships between equals, they don't always last. By the 11th century, a few really ambitious popes came along and basically decided, you know what? It's time for us to be the senior partner in this relationship. So check this out, because this is a fundamental shift in power. For centuries, the system was pretty simple. If you were a king, you controlled the church in your kingdom. You got to pick the bishops, usually guys loyal to you. But then along comes Pope Gregory VII and his big idea, the Gregorian reforms. And he just says, nope, that's over. From now on, every single priest, every bishop, everyone in the church answers to one person and one person only, me, the Pope, in Rome. And the fallout from this was revolutionary. The Pope's power just went through the roof. Suddenly, kings couldn't control their own churches anymore. And you get this whole new class of people, the clergy, who were loyal not to their king, but to this power in Rome. So yeah, you can probably see where this is headed. A massive showdown was pretty much inevitable. And wow, what a showdown it was. This is seriously one of the most dramatic moments in all of European history. It was the ultimate test of the Pope's new power. So it all comes down to this, a clash between the two most powerful men in Europe. You've got the Holy Roman Emperor, Henry IV, on one side, and our guy, Pope Gregory VII, on the other. And the fight was over something that sounds simple. Who gets to appoint the next Bishop of Milan? Was it the emperor's job, like it always had been?
Or was it now the Pope's call, thanks to his new rules? Gregory didn't even blink. He pulls out that ultimate weapon we talked about. He excommunicated the emperor. And this was just a brilliant political move. It wasn't just about Henry's soul anymore. It meant that all of his subjects, all his nobles and lords, were now officially free from their oaths of loyalty to him. Just like that, Henry's entire empire was about to collapse into open rebellion. So Henry is terrified. He's about to lose his life, his throne, everything. He's forced to do something absolutely humiliating. In the year 1077, he travels all the way to the Pope's castle, and for 3 days, 3 whole days, he stands outside in the snow, barefoot, dressed like a common beggar, just pleading for forgiveness. Can you picture that? The most powerful emperor in Europe, begging at the Pope's feet. That image sent a message that echoed across the entire continent. There was a new boss in town. Okay, so we've seen the high-stakes political drama, right? Kings versus popes. But what did all this power actually mean for the average person, for everyday life? Let's take a look.
Well, for the average medieval person, the church wasn't just important, it was inescapable. I mean, the belief in a very real heaven and a very real hell was absolute. And guess who held the keys? The church. The Bible itself was in Latin, which almost nobody could read, so you had to rely on your local priest to tell you what God wanted. Your entire life, from the day you were born to the day you died, it all revolved around that local church. And that threat of excommunication? For a regular person, that meant being totally cut off from everyone you knew. It was a social death sentence. And it wasn't just spiritual power either. We're talking about mind-boggling wealth. By the end of the medieval period, the church owned about 1/3, 1/3 of all the land in Europe. Just let that sink in for a second. 1 out of every 3 farms, forests, fields, you name it. A lot of this came from rich nobles leaving their land to the church when they died, hoping to buy their way into heaven. So this meant a lot of bishops weren't just spiritual guides. They were your landlords. They had real economic power over your life. So we kind of end up back where we started. We've seen this journey from a small, persecuted group to an institution so powerful it could bring emperors to their knees and control pretty much every aspect of life for an entire continent. And it really leaves you with one big final question, doesn't it? When a system of belief becomes that powerful, who's really in charge? The person wearing the crown or the person who holds the keys to the next life?